Welcome back to the channel Coin Dealer. We dive into one of the most fascinating stories in the world of coin collecting, a story that captures the imagination not just of numismatists but of anyone who has ever held a coin and wondered about the hidden treasures that might be lurking in their change, because today we are talking about the mysterious 1974 D-dime. A coin with a face value of just 10 cents but rumored in numismatic circles and sensational reports to carry a potential worth of up to $300 million, and while that number might sound almost impossible to believe, the reasoning behind it has to do with the combination of rarity, historical errors, mint mark mistakes, and the way the coin world values anomalies that break the normal rules of minting. So to understand why this little dime could ever be associated with such astronomical value, we have to explore not only the basics of coin minting but also the quirks that sometimes occur in the minting process, quirks that collectors call errors, and these can range from double strikes, off-center impressions, planchette flaws, dime misalignments, or incorrect mint marks, and every so often an error coin emerges that stands apart from the rest, sparking debates, speculation, and bidding wars in the collector market. And the 1974 D-dime fits perfectly into this category because while most dimes from 1974 minted at Denver carry nothing more than average value based on silver content and collectability, a handful have been reported with highly unusual traits, ranging from a misplaced or missing D mint mark to striking anomalies that set them apart from standard production, and when these kinds of mistakes happen they transform what would have been a routine coin into a one-of-a-kind piece that collectors would do anything to own, since in the coin collecting world rarity combined with an intriguing backstory often translates into monumental worth. And when you consider that only a tiny fraction of coins ever leave the mint with such bizarre errors, you can begin to see why a legend grew around this dime, suggesting it could command a staggering sum in the right auction. Now to break it down further, think about how coins are usually valued. A regular 1974 dime with no silver content is basically worth its face value, but if a coin has a mistake that is confirmed authentic, such as a mint mark struck in the wrong place or even a coin struck on the wrong planchette intended for another denomination, suddenly the value skyrockets. And with the 1974 D-dime there have been whispers of examples struck without the expected Denver mint mark, or with a misplaced mark that defies the normal production standards of the era, and when errors like that are combined with the fact that they are practically impossible to replicate without detection, their desirability multiplies because collectors want what nobody else can own, and scarcity is the golden rule in numismatics, so a dime with unique mistakes becomes an artifact unlike any other, and this is where the wild valuations come in, because in theory if only one or two examples exist and they are verified as genuine errors, the bidding war among elite collectors could push the price into realms that sound unreal. And while most error coins bring in thousands or even hundreds of thousands at auction, the myth of the 1974 D-dime stretches beyond those limits, partly because of the allure of what it represents, a tiny overlooked coin that could secretly be worth more than some of the most famous coins in history, and this idea feeds the speculation that under the right circumstances such a coin could sell for hundreds of millions. Now of course skeptics will point out that valuations are often inflated by hype, but in the world of collectibles hype itself is part of the currency, because the story behind the coin is just as important as the metal it is struck on. And when a coin has a story tied to mistakes, rarity, and mint mysteries, its value transcends its physical form, becoming a piece of folklore as much as a piece of currency. And for the 1974 D-dime, the possibilities of mint errors are numerous, ranging from double dies that show a ghostly second image on the lettering, to off-center strikes where part of the design is missing, to incorrect planchets that give the coin the wrong weight or composition. And while any of these errors could increase a coin's value, the rumors of the missing or flawed D mint mark push this dime into legendary territory, because the mint mark tells collectors where the coin was struck, and when that feature is missing or misplaced it makes authentication complicated but also more intriguing, which naturally raises demand among those who crave the rarest anomalies. And it is precisely this demand coupled with the perception of extreme rarity that explains why you may hear staggering figures like $300 million attached to this little dime. Because in the high-stakes world of rare collectibles there is no limit to how high people will bid if they believe they are competing for something truly unique. So while the everyday 1974 D-dime in your pocket change is just 10 cents, the lore surrounding certain error varieties elevates it into a class of its own, blurring the line between ordinary currency and priceless treasure, and that is the magic of coin collecting, where a simple mistake in a mint hundreds of miles away decades ago can transform a tiny piece of metal into a legend that sparks imagination across the world. Today we are uncovering the almost unbelievable story of the 2002 D1 dime coin that has stunned collectors and casual observers alike with its reported value of over $211 million despite its tiny face value of just 10 cents, a jaw-dropping leap that has become the subject of countless discussions, theories, and speculations. And the reason behind such astronomical worth lies in the mysterious combination of minting errors, die mistakes, and mint mark anomalies that have turned this otherwise ordinary coin into a legendary piece of numismatic lore, because in the coin collecting community errors are not just flaws, they are opportunities, they are fascinating accidents of history that often elevate a coin into a once-in-a-lifetime find. And when we talk about the 2002 D-dime, struck at the Denver Mint, what sets it apart is not merely one single error but the compounded possibilities of multiple mistakes during its production run that have somehow converged to make this particular dime stand out. For instance, experts speculate about double die obverse errors where design elements appear double due to a misalignment during hubbing, or repunched mint marks where the D mint mark has been applied more than once slightly off from its original position creating a shadow-like doubling effect, or even missing clad layers where part of the nickel outer layer fails to bond with the copper core, leaving a coin with unusual coloration and weight. And then there are even more dramatic possibilities like an off-center strike where the design is shifted away from the center leaving blank crescent-shaped fields, or broad strike errors that expand the coin's diameter due to missing retaining collars, or striking on the wrong planchet entirely, which could result in a dime struck on a cent planchet, creating a coin smaller or thicker than usual and with the wrong metal composition. And when you combine even one or two of these factors, the value of a coin skyrockets. But with the 2002 D-dime we are talking about a mythical piece that is believed to exhibit such an extraordinary combination of anomalies that its uniqueness may never be duplicated, hence the staggering valuation of $211 million. Because rarity drives value in the numismatic world and the fewer the examples known to exist the more competition there is among high-end collectors and institutions to secure it, and beyond the physical errors there is the aura of mystery that surrounds this coin, as many stories circulate about whether it was an experimental strike, an intentional mint blunder slipped into circulation, or a one-of-a-kind misfeed during production that was somehow overlooked by quality control and ended up in the hands of someone who recognized its significance. And all of these narratives add to the mythology that fuels its allure, because in coin collecting history has shown us that even the smallest detail can create massive waves of interest. For example, the 1943 copper cent, a coin worth millions because steel was used for pennies that year and only a few copper examples slipped out, or the 1955 double die cent with its dramatic doubling on the obverse that turned pocket change into prized possessions. And in the same way the 2002 D-dime has become a modern legend, not just for its physical qualities but for the possibilities it represents. Because collectors imagine what-if scenarios. What if the coin has a double denomination strike, showing hints of another coin's design underneath? What if it carries a mule error where mismatched dies were paired, such as a dime obverse with a quarter reverse? Or what if it bears a transitional error where it was struck with a design or metal composition meant for a different year? And all these possibilities combined with its secrecy and scarcity make the coin story even more gripping, and this is what excites the audience. The idea that a dime sitting unnoticed in circulation could secretly be worth a fortune if it bore just the right error, and that chance, however slim, is what keeps treasure hunters looking through change jars, coin rolls, and collections inherited from relatives, hoping to stumble upon a life-changing discovery. And the reported $211 million valuation of this single dime symbolizes not only its extraordinary errors but also the passion, imagination, and competitive spirit of the numismatic world, where deep-pocketed collectors are willing to pay unimaginable sums for the crown jewel of their collections. And while many skeptics might question such a valuation, within the realm of high-end auctions and private sales such figures are not impossible, especially when we consider the historical record of coins selling for tens of millions already, because once rarity, uniqueness, demand, and historical intrigue align, the sky becomes the limit. And that is why the 2002 D-dime remains one of the most talked about modern rarities, a coin that bridges the gap between everyday change and unimaginable wealth, between mundane production and miraculous mistake, and between a mere 10 cents and a figure so massive it almost defies belief. And so when we look at the legacy of this coin, whether we see it as an authentic marvel of minting or as an emblem of what is possible when the coin collecting imagination runs wild, one thing is certain: it continues to engage, inspire, and ignite conversations across the world, reminding us that Sometimes the smallest objects can hold the biggest stories, and that is the beauty of numismatics, where history, error, and human fascination converge to turn something as humble as a dime into a treasure worth hundreds of millions. One of the most fascinating mysteries in the world of coin collecting, a topic that has captured the imagination of both seasoned numismatists and curious newcomers alike, and that is the story of the 1982 P1 dime coin that has been said to be worth as much as $$ for 30 million, an astronomical figure when you consider its original face value of just 10 cents. And while it may sound unbelievable at first, the coin's extreme value stems from a combination of rare minting errors, historical context, and the possibilities surrounding how such mistakes came to exist, making it a symbol of how the smallest details can turn an ordinary object into something extraordinary. And when we look back to 1982, it was a year of transition for the United States Mint, because that was the year they stopped putting mint marks on coins at the Philadelphia Mint for a brief period, creating one of the most interesting situations in U.S. coinage history, as the disappearance or misplacement of the mint mark was not widely recognized by the general public but became incredibly significant to collectors once the mistake was discovered, and the 1982 Roosevelt dime is notorious for variations in mint marks, with some struck with the P mint mark, some without, and others showing errors such as faint marks or misaligned impressions, all of which have fueled debates and fascination among collectors for decades. And it is precisely this unique situation that creates the possibility of a single example of such a coin being valued in the hundreds of millions, because in coin collecting, rarity, uniqueness, and condition are the holy trinity of value, and when a coin manages to combine all three, it transcends its humble origins and enters the realm of legendary collectibles. And the 1982 P dime has been said to contain an extremely rare error variety where the mint mark is missing or struck in such a way that it is almost invisible, combined with near-perfect condition and an extraordinary provenance that ties it directly to a minting mistake that should never have happened. And the story grows even more compelling when we think about the possibilities, because coins are mass-produced objects created by machines that are supposed to be precise and flawless, yet even the smallest slip in the die-making process, or a mistake in the placement of the mint mark punch, can lead to anomalies that pass unnoticed until someone sharp-eyed pulls them out of circulation. And in the case of the 1982 dime, the error was not merely a one-off but a part of a larger pattern of inconsistencies during that period, and yet among all the error coins, a handful, or perhaps even just one, can stand apart because of a perfect storm of rarity, condition, and mystery. And this is why stories of the 1982 P dime selling for or being valued at $$ for 30 million are circulated. Because for collectors and investors alike, the dream of owning the rarest known example of a common coin is irresistible, turning an ordinary dime into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. And when we explore further, it is important to understand that such valuations are not based simply on the silver content or intrinsic metal value, since by 1982 dimes were no longer struck in silver but rather in a copper-nickel-clad composition, so their intrinsic value was close to nothing beyond 10 cents. Which makes the concept of a dime being worth hundreds of millions even more fascinating, because its worth lies entirely in the human element of rarity, mistake, and the stories attached to it. And while some skeptics may argue that $$ for 30 million is an exaggerated claim, one cannot deny that numismatic markets have seen coins fetch prices in the millions before, such as the 1933 St. Gordon's Double Eagle or the 1794 Flowing Hair Dollar. And in each of these cases, what drove the value was not the coin's material but the story, the scarcity, and the fact that collectors were willing to pay extraordinary sums for ownership. And in the case of the 1982 P dime, the missing mint mark error has made it one of the most discussed modern rarities, with speculation that if a flawless example with the right provenance ever surfaced, it could command a price that defies logic, perhaps reaching those hundreds of millions because of the bidding wars between wealthy collectors and investors who see it not just as a coin but as a unique piece of history, a symbol of human error preserved forever in metal. And what adds another layer of intrigue is the fact that most people would not recognize such a coin if it passed through their hands in change, since to the untrained eye it looks like any other dime. Yet for those who know, that tiny missing P mark or faint trace of an error makes all the difference, and this is what keeps the legend alive, the possibility that somewhere out there, sitting in an old jar of coins or hidden in a forgotten drawer, lies a dime that could change someone's life. forever, and in that sense the 1982p dime is more than just a coin. It is a reminder of how value is shaped not by what something is made of but by the stories, mistakes, and mysteries that surround it, and this is why its supposed worth of $$ for 30 million continues to captivate, spark debates, and inspire treasure hunters. Because the chance of discovering something so valuable in something so ordinary is a dream that appeals to all of us, turning the 1982p dime into not just a numismatic rarity but a cultural phenomenon that will likely continue to intrigue collectors and enthusiasts for generations to come.